Something is breaking down in men after 50. And we're not talking about muscle size, effort, or even discipline. No, it's the ability to stay online when shit really matters. You know, you feel mentally sharp, but your body checks out early. And in the gym, sets fall apart faster than they ever used to. Rest periods stretch for no good reason. You recover enough, but never fully. And here's the part that most men miss. The same breakdown shows up outside the gym. You wake up less switched on. Stress feels harder. Sleep doesn't restore you like it should. And energy, it now feels scattered instead of solid. Now that's not aging. That's a system running without support. And there's a compound, not a stimulant, not a hormone, that quietly holds the whole entire thing together. Inside the gym, it helps your muscles to keep contracting when they normally just drop off. Outside the gym, it supports your nervous system stability, heart function, fluid balance, stress resilience, metabolic efficiency. It doesn't hype you, it just keeps you functional. I'm Simon H, your Muscle After 50 coach. And by the end of this video, you're going to walk away knowing what actually keeps the signal alive between your brain, your muscle, and your recovery, inside and outside the gym. I'm also going to give you the jewel in the crown and tell you what this product actually stacks well with and why it is not random. This is a missing piece most men never even knew to look for. Now, before I reveal this compound, I want to see if you can guess what it is. Now here's some clues. Yes, it's natural, before you give it the side eye. Your body makes it. Your muscles use it. Your heart, now that depends on it. Your nervous system regulates itself with it. And it isn't a lab invention. This isn't a synthetic shortcut. It's a compound your body already expects to have available. Okay, and here's your last clue. You get it from food like meat, fish, shellfish. In other words, the exact foods humans have been building their muscle on long before gyms, powders, or marketing ever existed. But here's the problem. As you get older, production of this compound drops. Retention drops, demand goes up, not down. You know, stress, training, poor sleep, medications, they all drain this compound faster than you can replace it. So when you supplement with it after 50, and no, it is not creatine, you're not just adding something, you're not adding something foreign. You're restoring supply to a system that is running short. Can you guess what it is? The compound I'm talking about today is taurine. And if you're serious about muscle and being an unbreakable asset after 50, this substance sits closer in infrastructure than almost anything else you're taking. Now, let's describe a gym situation you might recognize immediately. You walk into the gym, mentally sharp, you're motivated, and you're focused. But your body doesn't follow the orders the way it used to. Strength shows up late, leaves early. That gap between intent and execution is the story of muscle after 50 for some guys. That gap is not fixed by adding more stimulants, more volume, more motivation, or just pushing through. Those only make the gap wider. What's breaking down isn't effort, it's signal integrity. Taurine, now that supports nerve signaling, cell hydration, calcium handling in the muscle, mitochondria efficiency, and stress regulation. It also helps you to maintain order. And after 50, order beats tolerance every time. Here's a mistake a man can make after 50 without even realizing it. He thinks muscle loss starts in the muscle. It doesn't. It starts upstream. You see, muscle is the last soldier to desert the battlefield. The system that commands it usually falls apart first. Things like your nerves, they start to misfire. You get cell dehydration. Your energy production, now that gets sloppy. Stress signals, they stay on way too long. So what does that look like in real life? So you don't suddenly just get weak. You wake up one morning and you're suddenly weaker. No. What usually happens is things like your strength, that becomes inconsistent. You get unpredictable fatigue. You're like using longer warm-ups in the gym and you're resting longer between sets. And to top it off, you're having shorter, useful sets. Now that's not muscle failing, that's coordination failing. Now taurine matters here because it is one of the few compounds that works across multiple systems within your body, not just in one tissue.
For more awesome content, like and subscribe now.
Taurine, it's not here to hype up performance, no. It's here to keep systems from degrading under load. So think of it like this. When you were younger, your body was like an off-road truck. You could bounce it, slam it, abuse it. But after 50, you're flying a helicopter. Same power, but much less margin. You know, failure is systemic, not dramatic. Taurine doesn't make the engine stronger. It keeps the hydraulics responsive, the controls clean, and the signal uninterrupted. Most guys hear cell hydration and they think, oh wow, I'm going to get a wicked pump in the gym. But this isn't about swelling tissues and looking good in front of the mirror. Cells that are properly hydrated contract more efficiently. They recover faster and they transmit signals more reliably. So think of it a bit like this. A dry sponge will crack under pressure. A hydrated sponge compresses and then rebounds. Muscle after 50 doesn't need more pressure, it needs resilience. Now taurine, it helps cells to hold fluid inside the cell, not just between the tissue. And that's one reason sets stop collapsing early. Not because all of a sudden you got tougher, no, but because the tissues, they're not panicking anymore. Let's talk about energy. Real energy, not stim energy. You see, things like caffeine, that borrows energy from tomorrow. Taurine, on the other hand, now that helps the body to use today's energy properly. So inside your muscle, inside the actual muscle cells, are mitochondria. They're the engines. And after 50, those engines don't stop working. They just stop working cleanly. So energy production becomes very noisy. More waste, you get more stress, more fatigue for the same output. Now taurine, that supports the mitochondria function by reducing oxidative stress and improving overall efficiency. Translation, you don't feel amped, you just feel steady. And steady beats amped every time when you're trying to build or even maintain muscle after 50. Before we go on, this connects directly to what we're talking about. Most men your age aren't failing, they're guessing. This call is where I diagnose what's actually holding you back and tell you exactly what to fix. Link below, read it first, book only if it fits. Taurine helps training, but listen carefully to how. Number 1, muscle contraction quality. Taurine now, that helps regulate calcium inside your muscle cells. That matters because calcium is the trigger man for contraction. Better regulation, smoother reps, less dead feeling, fewer sudden drop-offs mid-set. Number 2, less early fatigue. We're not talking about soreness or pain, just early neuro fatigue. When your muscle just stops responding. Now, taurine steps in and supports the environment that keeps contraction visible longer. Number 3, shorter recovery between efforts. And we're not doing any magic Jedi mind tricks here. No, we're just talking about a clearer reset between sets. The signal comes back online faster because the system wasn't trashed to begin with. Oh, and here's why some pre-workout companies use taurine and why that could be misleading. Yes, taurine shows up in some pre-workouts, but usually it is very underdosed, buried under stims, treated a little like a filler. So men think, I already get it in my pre-workout. No, you don't. You get noise with a sprinkling of structure. That's backwards. I'm not saying taurine directly builds muscle or burns fat. What I am saying is taurine removes system drag. And when the system runs clearer and cleaner, insulin works better. Fuel partitioning improves. Recovery improves. That means your training and nutrition finally get a fair trial. If the system can't hold the signal, nothing else gets a fair chance. And this is why you hear some men saying, I'm doing everything right and nothing's happening. They are. But the system can't cash the check. This is the part that separates amateurs from operators. You see, your nervous system, it's not fragile. It's just mismanaged. So men think that they need to protect it, do everything to protect it. Things like training lighter. I've got to move faster. Or I've got to avoid intensity. That's the wrong enemy. The nervous system gets stronger by clear demands, clean execution, adequate recovery, not by being sheltered like a little baby. Now, taurine helps regulate excitability, meaning less background stress, things like better sleep quality, more stable output. You start feeling calmer, more focused, more together. Not hyped, not wired, but more together. Now, here's a dosing protocol that actually makes sense, but only after you speak with your doctor. And please remember that this isn't medical advice. It's not here to replace what you're doing, what you've spoken with your doctor about. No, it's none of that. In fact, it's pure entertainment and a lab exercise for my silverbacks. That's all it is. So, when I'm dosing for my silverbacks, I would use anything from 2.5 to 5 grams of taurine a day. Yes, daily. No cycling drama. I'm using this like creatine because this isn't just a weapon, it's infrastructure. So what does taurine actually mean for your very next workout? Well, you don't change anything dramatically overnight, so you don't need a new program tomorrow. You don't chase longer sets, and you certainly don't add speed. You don't force anything, but what you do is first you concentrate on supporting the system. Then, gradually, you want to think about training with rules and structure. So if you want to know what rules and structure every guy over 50, especially those who are concentrated and concerned about being an unbreakable asset in life and in the gym, you need to watch this video next. And then, and only then, will effort start landing again. Now, we're going to leave the gym, and this is where most coaches that talk about taurine stop. But if taurine only worked in the gym, it sure wouldn't be worth this video, but it doesn't. And this is where most men over 50 should actually pay attention. Your heart, now that's a muscle, and taurine is heavily involved in it. You know, cardiac contractibility, things like blood pressure regulation, electrolyte balance. This stuff matters because muscle after 50 doesn't fail locally first. It fails systemically. You know, things like poor circulation, poor delivery, poor recovery between efforts. Now, taurine steps in and supports the engine that feeds every other system. That's not gym talk. That's survival and unbreakable after 50 talk. Taurine is not testosterone, but it supports the environment testosterone operates in. Lower systemic stress, better sleep quality. It also improves the nervous system tone. Now, hormones don't work in isolation. They work in conditions. And taurine, when that comes in, it helps those conditions stabilize. Now, this is where most men put their big boots on and screw things up. They hear one supplement works. Then they start piling on everything else on top, like sandbags on a collapsing bridge. That's not stacking, that's panic. A real stack works like a supply chain. Each piece has a job. Each piece supports the next. Taurine is not the engine. It's the communication grid. So anything you stack with it must either improve the signal delivery, reduce system drag, or increase unstable output without adding chaos. That's the filter. Taurine and electrolytes, that's the foundation, and it's non-negotiable. Taurine, now that helps cells manage fluid. Electrolytes determine where that fluid goes. Now, without enough sodium, potassium, magnesium, taurine is like installing better wiring in a building without any power. So think of your electrolytes as voltage. Think of taurine, now that makes sure the voltage reaches the right rooms. And this matters, and it matters a lot for muscle contraction, nerve firing, heart rhythm, and recovery between efforts. See, men over 50, they're chronically undersalted and overstimulated. This combo fixes that imbalance quietly. Okay, number 2, taurine plus creatine. Now that's the power with control. You see, creatine increases your ability to produce force. Taurine, now that helps you to control and sustain that force. That's why they pair so well. Creatine fills the gas tank. Taurine keeps the engine from knocking. Okay, here's the third one that's in my stack. Taurine plus TMG. Now that is like the stress offload. TMG is trimethylglycine, and that helps manage methylation and cellular stress. Here's the simple version of why I combine these. You see, when you're training after 50, that creates background stress, even when you do things right. TMG, now that takes pressure off the system. Taurine helps keep the system responsive. Now, if creatine is the force and taurine is the coordination, TMG, now that's the maintenance. Okay, the last part of my stack is taurine and HMB, and it's usually the free acid version. And I call this the holding ground because HMB free acid, it isn't about growth hype. It's about damage control. Think of it as reinforcing the walls while you're fighting. Taurine keeps the signal clean. HMB reduces unnecessary muscle breakdown. Together, they support muscle preservation, recovery, especially if you're using high tension work and it helps you to stay in the fight longer. Especially important if your calories are lower, your training intensity is higher. Now, this isn't about getting bigger fast. It's about not giving up ground. Now, here's a quick summary of why this stack makes absolute sense. Now, I want you to picture a battlefield. Your electrolytes, that's the fuel and the power lines. Taurine is the communications and the commands. Creatine, now I'd call that the heavy artillery. TMG, that's the logistics and the repair crew. And HMB, now that's the defensive fortification. Now, if you take one of those away, the whole operation slows down. Add random extras and you're clogging up the road. This is not about more supplements, it's about less friction. Now, since we've been talking about supplements and stacking, I want to stress this again. Before adding anything new, you've got to speak with a professional, i.e. your doctor, especially if you are on medication, you're managing things like high blood pressure, heart issues, metabolic conditions. And this is the reason why, it's because strength after 50 is about responsibility, not recklessness. Now, supplements don't replace rules. They don't fix bad training. They don't override bad decisions. They either support your system or they expose that you haven't got one. Taurine stacks best with things that respect what you're doing. And when somebody says, well, I tried this for a week, I tried taurine for a week and nothing happened, they've already told you everything you need to know. Not about taurine, but about their expectations. And here's the truth. If something changes how your body functions, not how it feels, a week is like meaningless. You don't judge better sleep, stronger joints, clearer recovery, more reliability outputs by how it feels on day 3. Taurine isn't caffeine. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't give you a buzz so you believe it worked. It quietly removes friction. And friction is something that you will only notice once it's gone. Here's how you actually judge it. Are your sets more repeatable week to week, month to month? Do you recover cleaner between sessions? Does stress bleed less into your training? Do you feel more stable, not more hyped? Now, if yes, it's working. Now, if you want fireworks, just buy stimulations. If you want muscle after 50 that stays online, you support the system, because impatience is expensive after 50. Quiet consistency is not. Now, taurine doesn't fail fast. People quit early. That's the difference. Now, if you want to judge everything by how you feel today, you'll be training like a tourist. If you judge by how and whether you can feel the difference over time, you're training more like an operator. And that's the difference. Now, my brother, let me leave you with this. Muscle after 50 doesn't automatically disappear. First, it goes offline. Taurine doesn't make you stronger. It keeps you connected. And connection is everything after 50, because the mission continues. Peace.